All right, so there you go. New high reversal after consolidation. There we go. Current day open high low is what we need. So this indicator, right, it's going to track the current day's, high and low prices for BloodHound there. And we don't need the open, so we'll turn that off. All right, that's all we need to do. Okay, so here we go. So there is the high for today. So what I'm trying to do is identify this pattern here that we're looking for. All right, and it looks like it's easy to spot this. So here we go. Right, so that matches our description here. Right, so we're looking for at least a 10 bar flat period. Right, there we go. Right, so we have at least 10 bars where there's no new highs made, right? So we have a flat period here for at least 10 bars. And then the first candle closes up and makes a new high, right? So there we go. So we have an up bar making a new high. And then the second candle needs to close down while its high makes a higher high. So here we go. So we have a down bar. Stretch this out a little bit, right? So we have a down bar, and its high makes a higher high. So there's our signal bar right there. All right, so now that we have an area on our chart to work with, let's start building here. So, all right, so step one, let's identify once we reach 10 bars of no new high, right, or basically a flat, basically the indicator just, plotting flat, so to speak. Let's see, to do that, let's use the indicator comparison there to do that. And let's see here, let's just call this a flat current day high or low. So input A, well, that's going to be our current day open, high, low, close indicator. So let's go find that. All right, there it is. And we are interested in the current high for short signals, right? So remember, we're off of the current high, we're generating a short signal here. And so off of the low, if we reverse all this logic here, all these conditions, then off of the low of the day, we're going to be generating long signals there, right? So there we go. We have our plots selected. And input B is also going to be that indicator. So we're going to select that indicator twice. And there it is. And we're going to select the same plots for short and long again. Now input B, that's going to be one bar back. So we're going to use the displacement function, right? So input A with a displacement of 0, that's going to be the current bar, right? So let's see, if this, if this is what the chart currently looks like, right? Input A is our bar here on the right, and then input B is going to be right, the plot one bar back. So what we're doing is we're comparing the indicator plot of the current bar to the indicator plot of one bar back. Right. Let's see. So we want a short output. Right. So we want a short output here when input A is greater than input B. Right. So remember, input A is the current bar. Input B is the previous bar. So when it moves up, right, we're expecting a short. Right, because remember, this is going to generate a short signal for us. So if we look at our outputs here, all right, so when A is greater than B, we want a short output there. So let me turn off the other short outputs. And 99% of the time, your long and short outputs are just going to be reverse opposites of each other, right? So for the long output, I'll use A less than B. And I'll turn off the other long outputs like so. Right? And there we go. So now we can see whenever, right, a new high is made, we're getting a short output out of our comparison solver there. Right? So there we go. Short output, short output. All right. Now, that we need another, we have a secondary condition here, right? The first candle needs to close up. All right, so we need a bar direction solver. Let's connect that in. Now, when we look at this, right, this is an up bar, so it's generating a long output. Well, we are looking for a short signal. So this long output, will prevent that short signal from occurring. So this long output needs to be switched to a short output, right? So we need to kind of reverse the direction here. So what we'll simply do is just use a long-short modifier, like so. And we'll just use the default swap mode right there. And I'll rename this to swap so we know what this long short modifier is doing. Right, so there we go. So on an up bar, we now have a short output. So let's move that back and grab an AND node. All right, so that is our first candle, right? That's our first bar of this pattern here, right? There we go. So that's our first bar. So now on to our second bar here, right? So the second bar, we need to make sure it closes down. Well, we can use this same bar direction, right? So if we plug that in, well, on the signal bar here, right? Well, it's a down bar, so it's going to give us, right, a short signal, just directly out of our bar direction solver there. So, but we do need to make sure that the second bar makes a higher high as well on our indicator, right? So our indicator needs to step higher. So what I can do now is grab another AND node, and let's see here. Yeah, let me pop that over there. So if I connect those up like so, right? So there is all the conditions, right? Or not all, but the two conditions for our second bar, right? Which is a down bar. So now we can start naming these AND nodes here just to kind of help us out, right? So this is the first bar, and this is the second bar, like so. All right. And one last step here, right? So if we connect in the first bar again, well, if you look, right, its output here, right, its output is one bar behind, right? So we need to get this output onto the signal bar, right? We need to shift it forward onto the signal bar there. So to do that, I can use a look back node, right? If I connect that look back node in, right, there we go. We just moved, right, the output from the first bar over onto the second bar, which is our signal bar. And so with this look back node, we're using the displacement function. So remember, basically displacement, you can think of this displacement in two ways, right? So basically what the displacement does is it takes information from one bar, however many bars back, and it moves it forward in time, right? So, going back to our comparison solver, right, where input B is using a displacement of 1, right? Well, basically, what it's doing is if I reverse my arrow, right, it's taking the plot from this bar and shifting it forward onto the next bar here. So that way I can, so think of it this way, right? I'm taking the plot from here and shifting it forward 1 bar. So that way the comparison solver, right? Our comparison solver here, when it's comparing A to B, right? It has to be, the comparison is always on the same bar, right? So using that displacement is a way of shifting the plot from 1 bar back onto the 1 bar forward, and then the comparison can make that comparison right together, basically on the same bar. Right. So taking our first bar and node, putting it into the look back node, and I'm going to rename this, right? And we're doing a displacement of 1, right? So again, that's taking the first bar, shifting it, or the condition, right? The output condition from the first bar, shifting it onto the signal bar. And so now, right, the second bar is basically our signal bar, right? And so now I can take that, plug it in there, and here I'll shift that stuff out of the way like so, right? And there is our finalized signal. Right. Let's close that out and let's take a look. And oh, you know what? I kind of skipped ahead there. I totally skipped ahead and went straight to looking for bar 1 and bar 2, and I didn't do the flat. I didn't look for the first flat 10 bars there. But as you can see, right, we do have bar 1 and bar 2 done here. So every time there's an up bar and then a down bar with a higher high, right, we're getting all those signals there. So a couple of signals, right? All right, so let's go back, take a step back here, and take care of the flat high for at least 10 bars there. And then we can finish this up. All right, so we're going to need another comparison solver here. So let's connect that comparison solver in. And let's see. So I did name this flat, didn't I? Okay, so I'll just call this new current day high or low. All right, so I renamed our first comparison solver. And so our second one here. There we go. So that's actually going to be our flat current day. You know what? This name's getting a little long here. All right, so this will be identifying when the high or low is flat for at least 10 bars. So let's go plug in our current day open high-low indicator again. All right, and select our plots again. All right, input B is going to be the same thing. All right, this time, well, and I do need a displacement of 1 for input B. All right, so input A and input B is set up exactly the same, right, as our first comparison solver. Let's see here, but this time for the outputs we want A equals B, like so. right? So there we go. So whenever the indicator goes flat, right? So we can see whenever, yeah, the daily high is flat for at least 2 bars, right? Because we do have to have at least 2 bars to say it's flat. So right from then on. So now we just need to count basically 10 bars. Make sure that we have 10 bars that are flat. And to do that, I could use either the signal extender, the signal counter, but that's a little overkill. So the look back node is a little simpler to set up there. So let's just use this look back node, right? Which, the look back node, is multi-functional. So it can shift, outputs or signals forward in time by using the displacement function. So that's not what we want this time. So I'm going to turn the displacement off by setting it to 0, right? This time we actually want to use the look back period function here. And let's see, 10. So let's put 10 in there. And then, so we want a minimum of 10 bars. Right, so let's see here. So we got, yep, there we go. So 10 bars. Well, I mean, if you include the first bar, then it's actually 11 bars, right? So it depends on where you start counting. If you if you start counting here as being kind of the first bar where things are flat, right? Which really, obviously, this is truly the first bar that you can say, okay, we have 2 flat bars there, right? 1 bar obviously isn't a flat pattern yet, so it takes 2 bars to make a flat pattern. So depending on where you start, counting from, will depend on your look back nodes, look back period here. So I'll just leave it at 10 for this, but that can easily be adjusted here, so you can control the length of this flat period, right? And let's see here. So let's name this here. So this is looking for a minimum of 10 bars. There we go. So there's our basically 10 bar flat detector. And I can connect that. Let's see. No, I cannot actually. Let's connect this up. Yeah. So let me just connect this here, right? So remember, so this AND node, all right, it's identifying our first bar. And of course, what we just built here is identifying the flat period. If I do connect this into our first bar AND node, right, you can see it kills the signal there. Oh, sorry, let's do this again. Let's connect this in. All right, so there, we're looking at our first bar AND node. If I connect that in, right, it's going to kill the signal. All right, and why does it kill the signal? Right, well, because, right, there's no output, right, on this new high. There's no output here on our first bar. So actually, so now that I identified this, now I do need to go back and use our displacement here. All right, so sometimes you do need to just kind of take baby steps, right, so that you don't get too far ahead of yourself, right? So if we do turn on that displacement there we go. So now we can see where we've taken our flat high or low, right, detection and shifted it forward onto the first bar. And so now if we take a look at our first bar AND node, there we go. Now it's working. So now we have our signal on the first bar again, right? And actually, if we look back here, yep, look. Yep. So again, we have a long flat period with an up bar making a new high, up bar making a new high, right? So obviously, that's probably going to happen a lot. So All right, so now should be done with the whole thing. There, so we'll just adjust things around a little bit, and we'll take a look at the chart. Let's see, let's go to the current area on the chart and see if there is anything. No, looks like we only have one occurrence at the market open, as it happens to be. Right, yeah, it looks like this doesn't happen all that often. There we go. All right, so going back to yesterday, there we go. So close to the market close, we had it one more time there. There we go. Another one. Yesterday near the morning market open. All right, let me skip forward and see if we can find any long signals. Well, the market's been on a pretty good up tear right recently. Let's see. No, nothing there. All right, it looks like we should have a signal here. So let's see what's going on here. Right, so we have a new low, and it's a down bar, right? And then we have another new low with an up bar. So what's going on right there? All right, so we're going to debug and see what's going on. So let's take a look at our flat detector. And oh, there we go. Found my mistake. All right, so our flat detector, right, the comparison solver detecting flats. If you look at my long output, well, I turned off all the outputs, but apparently I didn't get the number 1 inside the A equals B. There we go. So that's all I was missing, was setting A equals B, turning that on, setting that on with a 1 in the long output. So, all right, simple mistake there. And there we go. So there is our long signal. All right, so it's pretty easy to debug your system, right? Basically, you just start connecting, your various components into, the result node. Just check various components, kind of like how an electrician would, test an electrical circuit at different points, right, to see where that electrical circuit, breaks down, right? Well, same thing, right? You just take your nodes, plug it into the result node, make sure you're getting the correct output, and you'll find where your problem is very quickly. All right, so let's put that back, close that out, and all right, let me just kind of check back here. Yeah, there we go. There's another long signal right there. So, yeah. All right, so everything else looks good.